This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Hey there, Thunder buddies and travelers down Thunder Road. It's us, Days of Thunder, the WCW Thunder rewatch podcast that you didn't ask for, but we did anyway. Coming to us as part of the Voices of Wrestling podcast network and powered by alargemanapears.com. I'm your host, your team leader on Thunder Road, Dave Ryan. And I'm joined as ever by my faithful co-host, Stagger Lee Malone. Lee, how are you this week? I'm in jubilant mood myself.
Yeah, you seem in great form this week. I'm not too bad. I mean, compared to you, I'm probably depressed, but
yeah. I'm feeling chipper.
Yeah, well, what's going on?
It's good. I not going to get into on the free feed and stuff like that. Get into the shoot life stuff too much because of the sensitivity of my job. But big promotion that I've been kind of battling for about 8 months. I got it, which is amazing. Now I'm kind of in charge of my kind of operation,
division,
which is great. This is my first time where I'm going to be someone's boss. Pretty
nice.
Weird. Pretty weird. I'm going to be in charge of 4 people. But it's good. It's really you've known behind the scenes how long I've been trying to get this, and it's incredible because I was like a dog with a bone on it, and I'm not normally so insistent on something like that. I'm kind of go with the flow with career stuff, usually. But I was like, no, do you know what? Fuck it. I wanted to try and go against that. No one south of about 40 usually gets to this level, And I was like, no, fuck it. I can do this. And just wouldn't give up. And now I was saying it to one of my coworkers. I feel to pull something very cringely from The Dark Knight. I'm like the dog chasing the car. Now I finally caught it, and I'm like, oh fuck,
what do I do?
I don't know what to do now. But it's cool.
Yeah,
I'm happy.
Like you said, you've been working hard for it, and now you have it. And I'm sure you'll do fine.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Appreciate the show of support.
You got my full backing to do good.
Yeah. It's good because it kind of it's a lot more responsibility, and the buck stops with me now, but also at the same time it kind of pulls me back from the stuff that has made my ability to record more erratic, because I've been holding the fort, doing my job and elements of the job of the person whose shoes I just filled for the last 8 months. So my flexibility is about to go up as well, which is great, as well as the pay, obviously.
Yeah, it's all about the pay. Forget the flexibility.
It's good. So I'm obviously celebrating tonight. I've brought back, we don't do it every podcast now, but I've brought back the adult beverage. I'm having a Bushmills and ginger ale. And sadly, Lee, it's the end of my Bushmills supply.
It's always a sad day when the Bushmills run out.
Yeah, and my optic of the 4 bottles spinning around, so now there's one less in there, so I have to think very carefully about what's going to be opened next.
Actually, my lovely wife bought me I think she said it was a Valentine's gift, but she's awful at withholding surprises, so she just handed me this gift, a whiskey cocktail booklet. So it's I think it's 64. Hang on, it's across the way here. Hang on one sec.
Yeah. See, while Lee is off getting that now, I'm going to say that when we finally do a podcast in person, which we haven't done since Pick Your Poison Eddie Guerrero, I believe, Lee is actually now duty bound to make me a cocktail. Here he is now. Getting back.
I'm back. It's
back. I was just saying now when we have a podcast in person for the first time since the Eddie Guerrero show, you are duty bound to make me one of these cocktails.
Absolutely. So it's 60 wonderful whiskey and bourbon cocktails.
Ooh.
So I've had a quick glance through it. There's some good variations on your favorite mule.
Yeah, Lee, I'm not shitting you. I think I might have gotten that very book for Christmas off somebody. That cover looks really familiar, and I know I got a cocktail book at Christmas. Fuck, that might actually be oh, that's deadly.
So I'm looking forward to diving into this when I have some time.
For people who never made the journey to WXW, and one of our new patrons was actually asking us about, like, do we have plans to return? And at the moment, no, I don't think so. Yeah. I'd like to, if I was going to go back for one, Lee, I think I'd do the traditional one both of us would show up to, which was Tag League, because I think that's like a more chill vibe. Mm-hmm. It's later in the year as well, which gives me more chance to, like, get off work.
I also think it's more variety over a weekend.
Yeah. I don't currently have plans to go this year, but point is, one of the places we love to go for food in Oberhausen in Centro, the big kind of retail complex that's nearby, was a place called Louisiana, which we didn't actually, the first couple of years I was going there, we never went there. It was all just a 360 sports bar, McDonald's, the kebab van, places like that. But then we started kind of the last year or two, as we got older and couldn't do 3 square meals a day of burgers.
Yeah.
We all started branching out. Like Alan Forel has his famous train station Thai place, or was it Chinese?
It was a Chinese. Come on.
Couldn't remember if it was Thai or not, because there is a Thai place in one of the other train stations around there. But yeah, no, he goes to the one in the Hauptbahnhof, which is Chinese. You're right.
Was it a train station or a bus station? Well, no, it was a train station.
There's buses outside, but it's mainly the Hauptbahnhof, the train station. But Louisiana is one place that does kind of like, kind of southern style cuisine. And one of the things they did there was a Louisiana mule, which was, oh my God, it was incredible. And it was just like all this, it's kind of similar to like the Jameson Ginger and Lime. It's like a rich bourbon with
ginger beer,
loads of lime juice, and like kind of crushed ice instead of like whole ice cubes, and in one of those kind of like the metal cups that you would get a Moscow Mule in as well. And oh my God, there is like I created a meme of the Wolverine stroking the picture of like when lockdown happened, because like we had been there and had many, and it was the first time I'd been able to tempt a load of people into getting the Louisiana Mule with me. There was a night where we were all getting them at the table on the last night of that carrot. Kentucky Mule, yeah. We were all getting it, and then when we couldn't go out anymore, the two things I missed the most from Germany aren't the wrestling, it's the Louisiana Mules and the Werther's Original popcorn. Remember that? I'm
so devastated that COVID prevented me from getting that packet of Werther's Original popcorn.
Oh, they were et.
I know they were.
Yeah. I had brought bags back for you and Jamesy, and both of you. I think maybe you through gritted teeth, because Jamesy said at first that, no, you hold on to it, and you were like, yeah, fucking hold on.
I'm not going to see you for. It's been 3 years now, so.
Yeah. Like at a certain point, it's just us being real fucking lazy that we haven't actually seen each other.
And really, it really is.
It's actually depressing. But what could you do?
I always like saying the one, like, I think it was the first time we went to Oberhausen, or the first time I went, when we went to Tag League and came up with this idea for this godforsaken show.
Yeah.
And I had the temerity to order a whiskey at the bar in
I forgot about this.
It wasn't even the hotel we were staying in. It was
we were we the year you came was when we finally moved to do an Airbnb.
That's right. And who was Alan and Sarah were staying in
the NH.
the NH, and we were there that evening.
Yeah.
And I had the temerity to order whiskey, and the notions that were cast upon me.
Yeah. So I was going through a phase where I was just drinking beer. I wasn't drinking whiskey, my usual thing. And like me and friend of the show, Bose Johnny, star of the Eddie Guerrero episode we mentioned earlier on, he and I both ordered beers, and fucking Malone over here orders a whiskey, and oh my god, it was an evening of references. Oh, you sure you didn't like leave your monocle at the bar? And how the tables have turned.
Yeah, I tell you, look, who's fucking betting to their whiskey now, huh?
Because there was a while there where I got really hard back into the whiskey, and you were stuck on the beer. So the tables had flipped properly. Something I was thinking a lot about this weekly, and it's kind of a non-wrestling related thing before we kind of get into the business end of the podcast, is have you ever had like that thing where, see, like I'm a big music guy. I think you're a music guy as well, aren't you?
I'm not as big, but I've
as big,
grown up around music, yes.
Yeah, so like, have you ever got that thing? Music is incredible at having this kind of sense memory sort of thing, that like a particular song or a particular vibe in a song has this almost like can time travel you back to a very particular situation or period in your life. Like, oh my god, absolutely incredible. So I had this a couple of times in the last week. So the first was I often watch, there's a great little background watching YouTube channel I like when I'm editing, called Trash Theory, which does these little documentaries on how different movements in music started, whether it's like emo or new wave or whatever. And they had one on Lily Allen.
Okay.
And I was just like, Lily Allen is someone that I never like would go out of my way to listen to, but was like, you'd bop along if it was on the radio or whatever. And in the course of watching that documentary, I'm hearing clips of Smile and LDN. And all of a sudden, it was like the mid-2000s. I had my first summer job working in a Tesco near my house. And this was the kind of stuff that was on the radio in Tesco during that summer. Which also then made me think of other bands I was listening to around the time, like the Libertines or, Jesus, who else? Probably a lot of Arctic Monkeys at the time, Brendan Benson. That was the first one. And then also a big shout out if you're a music person and you like deep dives on music, there's a podcast I started listening to last year at some stage called What Is Music? And each series they will take a band. Okay. And they will go through their entire discography and do deep dives on each album or release, and sometimes like multi-part episodes on one album. Okay. And their latest season is Radiohead. Oh,
very good.
And they just got to In Rainbows, which is it was the first Radiohead album that came out after me being cognizant of who Radiohead were. If you know what I mean. So like I kind of got into them shortly before In Rainbows came out, so I'd gotten caught up. And then In Rainbows, especially being this like the first of its kind pay what you want, download online album, at the time was just like such a monumental thing. So I've been like listening to 15 Step that kicks off the album, just like is proper. I've gone back in time. Do you have any of those kind of particular, like you hear this song and it's just like fucking waves of nostalgia wash over you?
Yeah, of course. Like
apart from the American Males theme song.
That's just a good time for all.
Oh yeah, memories of getting lost in Cavan on the way home from that.
One wrong turn in fucking Belfast and that fucked us up for hours.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, look, but I'm, like I say, a little bit older than yourself, so for me it's a lot of like kind of what the kids now call EDM, like late 90s, early 2000s kind of dance club music. Just has there's certain songs that can just bring me back to certain places.
Underworld, Born Slippy.
I'm not that old.
Like that. but that's like because that was but that was like the soundtrack of so many like movies in the 90s. Like it's in the likes of, I think it's on the Trainspotting soundtrack, isn't it?
I think it is, yeah.
It feels like it is. I've also got real Jones to watch Train Spotting again lately. I need to do that. But go on, sorry.
But yeah, like stuff like that, and kind of a lot of like what you'd call, I think Americans would call like club music, like R&B and stuff like that. That's kind of very nostalgic for me for when you'd be going out and having a pre-children, pre-wife kind of social life. Remember before
the wild days
before COVID, But like again, there's just certain songs that bring me back to certain time. Like for example, my first dance at my wedding was "Lovely Day" by Bill Withers. And that's just a song that just brings me right back to a certain time. And but even then, like there's just different things, different songs that you
it's a certain thing. Like a couple of friends of mine have done it, where they've gone back and almost done like a musical autobiography, where they go year by year and make Spotify playlists of what they remember listening to at that time in their life. Like if ever I hear the 3 singles off MGMT's Oracular Spectacular album, all I can think of is sitting in the SU in Maynooth when I was like in college, because those 3 songs were what they do is when you didn't have money in the jukebox to play a particular song, it would play the top 10 played,
and it would just cycle through.
So it was the 3 of them, the top 5, right? So the 3 of them, the 3 singles, which were Kids, Time to Pretend, and Electric Feel. Then there was Just Dance, Lady Gaga, because again I went to college 07 through 010 was or 010. 07 through 10 were like my undergrad, and then I was there through the end of 2011 doing my masters the first time round. And so those were 4, and then there was, I can't remember, there was some other kind of something similar to that was the 5th one, and we were like determined to get something else in there. So what we did through sheer force of will was we got All Nightmare Long by Metallica into 5th place on the list, because they wouldn't have a lot of old stuff on the jukebox, which would like be our preference. It was kind of what had come out, and Death Magnetic came out while we were in that period in college, so we got All Nightmare Long on, because we thought it was really funny that like the GAA teams or whatever would always be putting on the MGMT stuff when they were on their nights out, and we thought it'd be really funny if like a combo breaker there was just Metallica every 5th song if they weren't.
That's something a friend of mine used to do, and like, you know, you'd go to the Leisureplex or whatever, you know, they had them jukeboxes up in like the pool hall and the snooker hall or whatever, and
the like, what would be the equivalent of a Leisureplex to our American friends? One of those, like, it's part arcade, part laser tag, part bowling
alley, part restaurant.
Yeah, but very much like de-emphasizing the restaurant part. It was like you get like a little red basket of hot dog and chips, and that's about it.
There was like a soft play zone for kids and stuff like that.
Yeah, it wasn't like a level of a Chuck E. Cheese or Dave and Buster's kind of thing.
It was very, very much more about just going in and playing the games, and it was
if
more,
you want food while you're there.
It was more so the pool and the snooker that seemed to do a lot of business for them.
When I did the laser tag there, Quasar as it was called, for I think it was my 12th birthday, you know that they blare music while you're doing it, and it's all the UV lights and stuff. The album that I had, I swear to God, my cousin Darren will tell you this if you don't believe me, the album they played while we were there was WWF The Music Volume 5.
No way.
Holy shit. Like, it was literally... I'm an ass man. This is like, so like literally lights went down and fucking Motorhead Time to Play the Game started, and me and my cousin, like, the thing you do to rile 12-year-olds up to the tits at that time is start playing WWF music. It was really weird about like 3 songs in when we were running around shooting each other to Kurt Angle's theme song.
Oh, is it 4 or 5 that has like all the really like heavy Attitude Era songs? Maybe it's 4.
4 is the one that has like the DX song on it and stuff. 5 is the one with Taz's song, Time to Play the Game. Kurt Angle. It's the one that has the really super racist rock song with Slick Rick on it. Yeah.
Yeah,
but anyway,
that's
sorry.
The one with him and the pie on the front of the cover. Yes. Yeah, now 4 is the one with like Mr. Ass and DX and stuff like that. God.
Controversial take, always been a bigger fan of the Run DMC remix DX.
Oh, it's so good.
Compared to the normal DX.
Mm-hmm. Kings of Rock.
Yeah.
Great song.
It's a great song. I'm just looking up, WWF The Music Volume 5 now just to see what. So, what we had on that, the track listing was The Game. Oh my god, track 2 was Rowdy, K-Quick. Then Taz, Lida's first song, the It Just Feels Right, not the screaming version from Forcible Entry. Kane's normal song, Latino Heat. Oh my god, the one Billy Gunn song.
The one
I've got
that
it
was
all.
on it. That's what it was. Yeah.
Oh god, our favorite theme song, What About Me, Raven. China's theme song, which wasn't bad. Kurt Angle's theme. Oh, Rikishi's I'm a Bad Man. Chris Benoit's version 1, the not Our Lady Peace version. Oh, the second Too Cool song, Turn It Up.
Yeah, not as good as the first one.
And then Pie. I didn't realize Brian Gewirtz had a writing credit on Pie, which I'm sure he's very proud of.
I'm sure you could you could add him on Twitter and ask about it, because that's all he seems to do these days, is reply on Twitter.
Yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to see if you had any of those sense memory things. To get more towards the WCW of it all, before we get into the show, I want to announce the arrival of our first Days of Thunder listener survey, which is available at the link is in the show notes, and we'll be pushing it out on Patreon and on Twitter this week. Basically, we just want to, we have great chats with everybody on the tweet machine and in Discord and on Patreon. But we don't really have a sense for what stuff everyone prefers over other stuff we do. We're thinking particularly of people who are current patrons at largemanopeers.com, people who were patrons in the past, and people who are kind of, maybe on the fence thinking about it, but they're waiting for the right show, the right idea to come their way, Lee. We just kind of want to get a sense of, we have ideas for shows that we think are good, but we don't know if we start doing that and people just aren't into it. We don't want to... The whole idea is we have such immense respect and appreciation for the people who give us their coin over on the Patreon. We want to make sure they're getting what they want rather than what we want to do. There's definitely some sort of middle ground that can be struck on there. So like if there's a particular show we're doing that people just aren't feeling, we want to know about it so we can rotate it out or retool it or something like that. So that's the point of the survey. Should only take you about 3-4 minutes at most to fill out, and we'd really appreciate it if you did. The other thing related to that is we have 2 new ideas for shows that we're going to keep in the wings, and kind of based on what people are telling us about the shows they do or don't like, we may rotate one or both of them in to the Patreon schedule. And the firstly is an idea called Match Club, and do you want to explain what that is?
So Match Club is a thing that we used to do with a collection of our friends on Twitter, obviously in the DMs, and it would be basically our original Match Club would be every week somebody would be drawn to select a match, and we would all sit around, we would all watch the match over the period of a week, get together at a certain time and have a big long Twitter discussion about it. Now our Match Club is going to be slightly different. Our Match Club will be, Dave will select a match, I will select a match, and we will have a listener selected match that we will sit down and watch, and then discuss in kind of lengths what it's about, what we enjoyed about, what we didn't enjoy, etc. And that'll be Match Club, basically. Yeah.
And we have a couple of ideas for what we might do, like to change that around. Like I think sometimes it might be cool if people did want it, that we might do the odd time. I don't want to set up an expectation that we'll do it every time, but we might do a live Match Club, stream it on YouTube or whatever. And by doing that, we might be able to get live input from the person who did the listener requested match. That might be an idea. The other show idea we have, because this came out of, we got really positive feedback on, ironically, on our Sold Out 97 show, which we just dropped over at largemanopeers.com, that resulted in both of us, but mainly me, having a genuine crisis during the recording of it about how bad it was. And it seems you absolute sadists out there really want us to watch more horrendous stuff.
It seems that Thunder hasn't been bad enough for
no
for our listeners' taste, so now they want even worse for us.
Yeah. So we came up with a slightly different version of Match Club called Trash Club. And what this is going to be is, like, periodically me and Lee will wade onto the Patreon, and we have some ideas. But we are going to basically get together a list of worst matches, worst angles, or worst shows of all time. We might not put a couple of the very obvious ones on there, your heroes of wrestling, because every podcast has done heroes of wrestling. I don't want to start off a series like that with Heroes of Wrestling. Maybe, if people really, really wanted us to do Heroes of Wrestling, maybe that's something we could do eventually. Same for December to Dismember. I think December to Dismember will be one that we just keep putting in the Christmas show poll until it wins. Yeah. But we'll keep that off as well, and kind of try to think a bit more outside the box in terms of horrible shows. And the way we'll select what show or what match or what angle we're going to do is by virtue of spinning a wheel. So that you and I don't know until the show is about to happen what we're going to have to endure. There's a randomizer element to it.
To throw,
and we'll actually...
I was going to say, to throw in the WCW-ness of it all. It's the old spin the wheel, make the deal.
Yeah, and we'll do, whenever that show comes up, we'll do the spin of the wheel on the free shows, so people know what's coming up. But yeah, that's just a little bit of what we're thinking coming into this listener survey, the stuff that we're going to rotate in if there's shows that people aren't feeling. We also obviously have the long ruminating idea that I think will be coming this year. It's just a matter of when I can get round to it. Our more kind of documentary type audio production, the Kingmaker, the Mick Foley pod that I want to do.
That'll be a kind of a longer term project, as in, we might could be like we do one episode now, and then 6-7 months down the line we do another kind of in-depth episode. Because
I want it to be part narrative, where I'm actually writing scripts and doing voiceover and pulling clips and stuff like that. I want to do a real fucking good job on it. So that'll be kind of your, I suppose, the equivalent in this network is like a Jovember to Remember thing. They're not coming out all the time, but it's definitely something I'm going to commit to getting at least the start of out this year. But last thing of all is, before we get to this episode of Thunder, we need to go up to the Days of Thunder Control Centre and stagger Lee Malone.
Welcome back to the Days of Thunder Control Centre, where I will give you all a very quick rundown of what you can expect from us between the months of February and March. On our free feed, which if you are listening to this right now, well then you know how to find us, beginning on Thursday the 9th of February, we will have Thunder episode 65. Thunder episode 66, the go home show for the Great American Bash, will follow, and then of course we will have a Great American Bash 1999 review. Patreon.com/WCW Thunderpod is where you want to go if you just can't get enough DOT in your audio diet. Just $5 a month gets you access to our complete back catalogue, including our retro review series of Rehash of the Champions and Black and Golden Days, which cover the NWA era Clash of the Champions and every era of Paul Levesque's vanity project known as NXT. And coming up this month, we will have a return of Days of Thunder at the Movies, and it's a very special awards season episode. Dave and I will be watching and reviewing the listener selected, the one and only, starring a very young Henry Winkler. We will then also have another installment in our second series of TRL shows, and this month's show will be selected by our good friend Chris Damasceno. March will also have a TRL show, as we will be reviewing the awesome Backlash 2008 selected by VOW's own Suit Williams. And as well as Suit's TRL show, in the month of March we will have a very special listener selected topic, which we have no idea what will be yet, over on alargemanapears.com. And finally, March means it's revolution time. So of course, the Days of Thunder pre-show will be back once again, as we will be broadcasting live on YouTube for 1 hour before the Revolution pre-show begins. All of this great content, plus show notes, access to both of our Match of the Year sheets, sneak previews, and so much more. Patreon.com/WCW Thunderpod. Only $5 a month. And now we return you to your regularly scheduled podcast.
This is Thunder, episode 65, the second show taped in Charleston, South Carolina, the 3rd of June, 1999, getting a fairly disappointing 3.1 rating. We've been up in the mid to high threes for a little while now, so 3.1 will definitely be a little bit of a wobbler for them. Just to kind of, before we get into like the kind of play-by-play on the show, Lee, I thought for the second half of a double shot, I didn't hate this show.
No, I didn't hate the show either. I think it wasn't necessarily good.
Yeah.
But like when you consider it's the second half of a taping, it's very clearly they aren't sure of what exactly is going to be happening on Nitro.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it is very much a holding pattern episode.
I think it does have a watchable quality to it that a lot of these ones don't.
It does, because like if you look at the participants in the matches, it's all people in current storylines. Like match 1, you've Bam Bam. Match 2, you've Hugh Morris and Billy Kidman.
Yeah.
Match 3, Buff Bagwell, who's been getting a push. Match 4, Scott Norton, he's in a feud.
Yeah.
5 has the rap versus country feud.
Yeah.
And match 6 is actually a pretty big main event.
Yeah, that I'm kind of surprised they gave away on Thunder. Like, I thought that would at least be a Nitro main event. Yeah. So the main event tonight is Ric Flair versus Chris Benoit. Which, again, they've been doing that storyline stuff of the horsemen have deserted Flair. With the exception of Arn, obviously.
They've crumbled from within.
Yeah, so I thought I wasn't going to think in a million years that this was going to be like a big pay-per-view match. Now, I would have made it one if I had the book. But I wasn't under any illusions that this WCW would do that. But like I said, I thought this would at least be a main or semi-main on one of the big Nitros that they do.
Yeah, I mean, they're never that far away from doing it like at Nitro in the Carolinas or Atlanta. So why not have Flair in a prominent position on that show?
This is what I would think. One thing I noticed in the intro to this show that I thought, like, God, they really haven't given up the ghost on this, is that Tenay still opens the show by describing how we're going to see the top superstars of both WCW and the NWO, even though there's only like 4 of them left and they're all dorks.
Mm-hmm. They're still trying.
Yeah.
Like Kevin Nash is still in the NWO.
Yeah, because it's incredible. I think we've commented on this before, Lee, is that the gap actually between the NWO not being a thing anymore and NWO 2000 happening is a lot shorter than I remember.
Yeah, people think the NWO went away very quickly in 1999. It didn't.
Yeah. Like I said before, I'm pretty sure I'm watching at this stage because I'm starting to remember things on these shows. Like again, Lash LaRue and stuff like that debuting, I feel like I was around for. But in my head, my rose-tinted glasses, I don't remember the NWO being a thing. Now, obviously, like maybe it's because I start watching around this time, and even though the NWO is mentioned and there's still guys in NWO shirts, relatively speaking, they're very de-emphasized on the show compared to where they even were 3 months ago in WCW time.
Like, here's a point that isn't talked about. Like Scott Steiner is like a mega pushed member of NWO 2000.
Yeah,
Scott Steiner never leaves the NWO in 1999.
Yeah,
like he's forever in the NWO black and white.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It really is. Like, do you think it's just now? It could be some combination of both, but do you think it's more of a we're still selling these shirts things, or do you think it's one of the flogging a dead horse, they only have 3 ideas thing.
They only have 3 ideas, and they just kept constantly going back to let's reform the NWO in spite of the NWO never going away.
Yeah, like a conscious booking decision would be to put them on a shelf for a while, and then like I think the impact of NWO 2000 happening would be much bigger, and would probably, like, in terms of generating revenue, if you've just pulled all those NWO shirts for a year and then they come back
in a different color,
I
get it. Like it's a new shirt, but it's the same old shirt.
Yeah, because I guarantee when they went away for a year because of Time Warner contracts, I bet those NWO shirts in WWE sold like fucking gangbusters.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, even though that was like almost from minute one it was dog shit.
But like even now, people will still buy the Wolfpack shirts. They'll still buy the NWO shirts on like bootleg sites.
I've really thought about it since we started doing this podcast. Like, I've never owned an NWO shirt. Yeah. But I'd be tempted just for the sake of nostalgia. But it's funny because was it Kylie Jenner, or was one of the Jenners had a Wolfpack t-shirt? Because there's this thing now where I've seen it, like fashion influencers having old
retro
wrestling t-shirts.
I've seen that, yeah. I think that was the thing like 2 years ago.
Yeah, there's a thing like I think of, just for an Irish point of view on it, that like, so I watched what are they called? They used to be the Fact Channel. I can't even think of what they're called now. And I think it's the Try Channel. Of all the, like, the Irish people like trying different things. The Try Channel. And one of them is an influencer, Ciara O'Doherty, and she showed up on one wearing the Stone Cold Steve Austin, where he has the cobras for arms, or the rattlesnakes for arms, that t-shirt. And I was like, I haven't seen that t-shirt in 20 years, man. That's awesome. But yeah, like I think they kind of cut off their nose to spite their face. They couldn't let go of the NWO as a going concern, even though like long term it might have made them more cash to put it away and not talk about it for a while. And have them come back slightly different, but whatever. Nash has demanded the title match with Savage in 10 days at the Bash, which I guess, like, in the out of control reign of terror Randy Savage thing, it he got what he wanted, so that is storyline continuity. Nash, who is a baby face at this point, is just furious that Savage is not only repeatedly attacking him but basically ruining every show, and he's just like, right, fucking fine, I'll fight you. And then in a moment where I thought I got hit on the head and was having deja vu all over again, at the pay-per-view, Lee, we're getting Ric Flair versus Roddy Piper for control of the company.
Are we?
That's what they said.
Oh my God. Did we definitely did just watch that, didn't we?
Yes, yeah, we did, yeah. I am so fucking sick of control of the company storylines, man.
And they're not going away.
Oh no, I know they're not. I'm so done. I am so done with it. So like when he said that, I was just like, fuck you. And yeah, it is on the pay-per-view. I just double checked there, yeah.
Motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Why in 1999 are we doing a 3-month-long Roddy Piper Ric Flair feud?
Would you want me to give you something that's at least will put a smile to your face?
It's under 10 minutes.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
But on the pay-per-view, we have 3 teams we've been looking forward to. They are actively teaming, but they go by the names finally that we know, that we kind of remember. So Conan and Ray are officially the No Limit Soldiers at the pay-per-view.
To be fair, that's not the name I want them to be.
Yeah, no, we're getting there. The West Texas Rednecks have their name officially, and the Jersey Triad are officially named. So that's heartening, at least. Oh, also, do you want to hear something else about this pay-per-view that you're going to really love?
Yep.
No match goes more than 11 minutes.
Hell yeah. Bring on the Russo.
Yes. Yeah. honestly. Yeah, but I just written in my note, Ric Flair versus Roddy Piper for control of the company. Are you joking? Like, because like, we literally just did this. We literally not even, we have been doing variations of the control of the company thing for a long, long time already on this show, but we literally did this exact match for that exact stip a month ago.
Pretty sure we've talked about this before on the show. Like, in 99, other than like Goldberg, Ric Flair is probably still the biggest star WCW has to its native audience.
Yeah.
And look at the shit they've put this man through in 1999.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a thing we've remarked on, in spite of everything, how over this guy remains until the death of the company. Mm-hmm. Fake heart attacks.
Sorry, Sting, I forgot Sting. So Sting and Flair are probably like right around 1B, like level on 1B.
Yeah, fake heart attacks, insane asylums. We have yet to get to him being buried in the desert. But there is a lot more shit to come with Ric Flair.
We've never really gotten an explanation for why Asia's with him.
No. Nor will I encourage you to hold your breath for said explanation.
No, because I'm pretty sure by the next pay-per-view cycle she's with that other new group that's coming.
Yes. But more on that anon. Our first match, Bam Bam Bigelow versus Scotty Riggs. Larry got a good pop out of him here by calling Bam Bam Bigelow Old Firehead.
Yeah.
Which I can't believe that wasn't his gimmick. That would have got over like Rover.
Larry on this show is fucking horrendous. And I think it's because he's actively trying. But he is so bad.
This is what I think I was in the was it this show or was it the last show? No, it was the last show, wasn't it? Where I was in the Discord talking about how, like, I couldn't believe that Larry paid attention for a whole match. But he was trying. He wasn't trying in the way to be like a serious commentator trying. He was trying to be Bobby Heenan trying.
Yeah.
And there's, again, with that approach, there's a couple of gags that land. And I'm not going to lie about that, but for every joke that lands, there's about 15 that don't.
And he just talks and talks and talks.
Yeah.
And says nothing.
And it's that he interjects, and while he has the floor, he just goes on streams of consciousness and then trails off. And Tenay is like, well, be that as it may, and then goes back to what they were actually supposed to be talking about.
There's one instance in the Flair Benoit match that just I've just stuck in my brain, where Larry has to be talking for a good minute and a half, and he stops and Tenay just goes, so what you're saying is he's earned that name, the dirtiest player in the game. And it's just like,
he's just editing him live on the air.
Oh my god,
and not even live on the air, because the other thing that makes this inexcusable is that this is the taped commentary edition. So they could have redone any of these matches in the booth.
Nope, they literally sat in the booth for 90 minutes and just told Larry to fill 90 minutes.
Yeah. So we're going to see, and this is one of my early memories of an infamous, we're trying to do something WWF kind of did angle, where a loose septic service happens. We get to see a bit of that later, which is obviously at this point in the timeline, we've had the beer bash.
We have.
And we've had I think we had Zamboni 316 already at this point as well.
That would have been May, so yeah, that would have made sense, yeah.
So we're trying to do the thing where the babyface world champion does something chaotic to the heel like that, and loose septic service. We'll talk a bit about that later. Today casually drops in this. I don't know if you missed it. That Bam Bam and DDP are tag champions now. Okay. Because as well, I forgot this is a tape show, so obviously he wasn't going to come out with the belt, because I guess they made this decision, because we talked about it on the last couple of shows, that Raven is gone now. Apart from one house show around this time, he's gone.
Yeah, so they talk about it on commentary that DDP and Bam Bam were basically taking out the competition on Nitro. They took out Raven before he even got into the arena, and they took out Malenko, I think it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Raven's gone bye.
Yeah. So they're the champs now, but like, hey, as far as combos for champs, you can do a lot worse than Bam Bam and Paige, so that's cool.
I will say, I think they adjusted on the fly pretty well.
Yeah, like this is obviously best case scenario. You have them go over in a big championship match on a pay-per-view or a build to it on a Nitro, but they were kind of tied by circumstance.
This would make sense because it was pre-Nitro.
Don't say things like this would make sense.
Sorry, non-kayfabe, this would make sense.
Yes.
Because it was pre-Nitro that Eric Bischoff gave his nobody in this business is a draw.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to be here, I'll give you a release. And that's when Raven stood up and went, well, I don't want to be here.
Yeah. Oh, I don't want to be here.
And that's when he got... So obviously, the getting put in a dumpster was the write-off.
Yeah. Something I'd actually like to hear, just as a kind of nice send-off to Raven. Do people want us to cover his return angle to ECW?
I want us to cover his return angle to ECW.
When it happens, do you want to do that as a one-off special?
Isn't that the
because
same?
Because I feel like the way he disappears because of he goes, well, I don't want to be here. We don't ever get a proper Raven send off, and because he's been our dude for most of his run. Like we are the Raven revivalists. Actually, here's something we should have brought up before the show. Raven and Ron Reese reunited on Impact last week.
As I said on Twitter, I think Scott D'Amore is a man of taste. Fuck the NWO, bring back the Flock.
I have a feeling that our good friend of the show, Gar Kidney, pulled the strings there.
Definitely doesn't book the show.
The original large man appeared. Huge pop. But yeah, let us know if you want us to do that Raven returning to ECW bit, because I know, like you said, you and me would be chomping at the bit to do that. Like it was a him and Dreamer against the Dudleys, wasn't it?
It was. I'm just pulling it up on.
He returns to save Tommy.
I'm pulling it up on Cage Match. If you just give me
one of the biggest reactions you'll hear. I was actually only listening. Speaking of big ECW reactions, I was only watching that. You know, the hand cam footage of Scott Hall showing up at ECW. Like how is that? Somebody said this on Twitter. I don't want to misattribute it, so I won't say who. But somebody did say it recently. It's like, how, with all the fucking money that was wasted on like Buffer and all these things in WCW, did they not license Ready or Not?
I know.
Here I come. Like, how are you not giving the Fugees the call for the last couple of years of WCW? It's fucking
especially
scandalous.
wasn't the thing that like Wycliffe Jean was like a huge wrestling fan.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, ECW on TNN number 2. It was taped on the 26th of August 1999 and aired on the 3rd of September.
Okay, so we have a few months to put that in the schedule in our timeline, because I don't want to get to it out of chronology, because there will be men who have left ECW and come the other way by then. So I don't want to do that. But yeah, when we get to it, I'd be really interested in doing it. Much more interested. Like, I think we're committed now because people have said they'd like to hear us talk about just in isolation, the Owen tribute match. So I think we'll put that on the calendar for later in the year, because they don't do the tribute match for several months. I think is it October?
No, October is the pay-per-view, is the tournament match. That's the tournament final. I'm pretty sure the Owen match is like June or July. Oh,
okay. Well, I'll need to get that on our schedule, because we will do just that match. But yeah, I suppose what did you think of this? Scotty Riggs is at nothing at the moment.
Yeah.
But I don't think he was the worst guy to go against Bam Bam either, because he is like, he's not a big name, but he's a name. Oh no, it's October 4th, 1999.
Oh,
is
really?
The tribute match on Nitro. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I thought it was a lot sooner than
That's what it says here. Yeah.
So when was the pay-per-view? The pay-per-view must have been November then.
That month. Yeah, it must be November, because then Starrcade is December, and that's the end of Brett.
That's what it is, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, what did you think of this pairing? Because I thought, like, even though Scotty Riggs isn't up to much, he's still, like, somebody that he's not absolutely a nobody for Bam Bam to run through.
I think Bam Bam sold way too much for Riggs.
Yeah, that's the only thing, isn't it?
I thought this match went way too long for a guy that's getting a semblance of a push and Bammer.
I thought it was going to be a 2-minute match because it started off with like all Riggs on offense, and then Bam Bam just beasted him like and started wearing him down with sleepers and stuff like that. I thought, all right, okay, no, here we go. It's going to be over quickly. He just kind of gave him 30 seconds out of respect or whatever. Larry did have a good line in here. He's like, I'd rather get drafted to Vietnam than get brought to Asbury Park by Bam Bam Bigelow.
What
they do say that Raven's still in hospital as well during that.
Yeah, I liked they were talking about the success of the flock post Raven, including Raven having success post flock. Yeah, and they talk about how Riggs kind of hasn't lived up to his potential or whatever, and Larry just out of nowhere shits all over Kidman, going, yeah, but he's been successful with the cruisers.
Yeah, shits on Kidman and the cruisers all in one. Thanks, Larry. They go outside for a moment, and when they get back in, Scotty misses a corner splash. Bam Bam does his his dropping headbutt. It's yeah. Another Larry line that did get me during this was, it's got to be intimidating when you see a guy come at you with a head like a 57 Chevy. Which I thought that's a good one. You're shaking your head, but I like that. Running corner splash from Bam Bam. He goes for a second. Riggs fights him off. Hits a famouser. Goes for a top rope dive. Bam Bam punches him clean out of the air, which is one of my favorite things in wrestling. Hits the greetings from Asbury Park and wins. And then Larry with another one that fell flat just as the segment ends. I think you'd take less of a beating if you just went straight to Atlantic City instead. Just naming all the places you know in Jersey, Larry. Good man. Nitro and the angle you mentioned before, Raven getting jumped by Page and Bigelow. Do you know what's one of the weirdest sights in wrestling, Lee? I think you know what I'm going to say here, because I think I might have mentioned it before. Bam Bam Bigelow in street clothes.
And
that man, much like Pac, that man should be in his gear regardless of context.
I think you're going to see a lot more of him in street clothes over the next little while.
Yeah. He's just in a nice, smart, casual shirt, and I didn't like it. It felt very uncomfortable.
Isn't it at this point where his ring gear changes to just plain trousers and it's just a black top?
Yeah, it's weird. Saturn finds out what has happened, and him and Canyon are fuming. They agree to defend the belt together, but the Jersey lads find and take out Canyon.
Well, no, the camera cuts to Canyon taken out. You don't see Canyon being taken out.
Crucially. Fast forward, and Canyon returns from the hospital to save Saturn, but he eats one punch.
So this is what I mean by I think they pivoted well. Because the whole thing they were teasing was that Canyon, these were his boys, but he's very much with Saturn and Raven.
Yeah. And again, like you said about the pivoting well, the only other person he has established lengthy history with in this company is Page.
Like
going back
the
to
thing was the big
feud that started Thunder.
Yeah, he always wanted to be with Raven. Saturn didn't trust him. He earned Saturn's trust. Now the three of them are back together. Now that Canyon's back, they win the tag belts. And instantly, they do that kind of lingering look to Page and Bam Bam.
Yeah. You also have that thing, the running thing about Canyon is that he's just he is susceptible to follow people. Mm-hmm. He's never been his own man, really. Because he was with James Vanderberg at the start of Thunder. And Raven manages to convince him to kind of come over eventually.
Even though he didn't know what he looked like.
Didn't know what he looked like. And then he's the first to run back to Raven after the flock dissolves. And now, he's found a more persuasive person. Yes. So I definitely like that little bit of continuity as well. It is one of the better, we have to change something. How do we pivot? Now, I will say they're helped by, I think some of these plates were already spinning.
Yes.
I think we were probably heading towards this, maybe not this quickly, but I think this was in the offing already.
Yeah, I think this would have been the long-term direction anyway, and you have Saturn and Raven chasing this trio.
But that's why it's always good in wrestling to not just book what's the next thing this guy is doing, but book like two things ahead. Think of the context, because then if plans change, you still know what your next step is, and you can try to find another way to get there rather than, oh shit, we have to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Which is interesting considering where Saturn goes from here now.
Yeah. For his remaining time. Saturday night tease, and we've got Buff, Rick Steiner, Kidman, Fit Finlay, and Brian Knobbs. Another flashback to Nitro. Hugh Morris and Kidman getting interrupted by Brian Knobbs and the Hardcore Trash Can. In amongst this, I'm not entirely sure his involvement in the segment, but Hack also gets killed. He's there. And then we get a singles match, Billy Kidman versus Hugh Morris with Jimmy Hart. Morris jumps Kidman at the bell. It feels like we haven't got a WCW match start in a while, but there we go. Kidman gets his sea legs, but Jimmy tries to attack him outside and distract him inside, and he's got to go take him out. But that gives Morris a chance to get the heat. From that point, it's a lot of Hugh Morris, unfortunately. He does a little bit of a comeback after a missed corner splash, which I thought was interesting in terms of like agents not talking to each other again, that the impetus for a comeback in 2 successive matches is the same spot.
They don't care.
Yeah, no, they don't. They don't. But, you know, still, I noticed it. I pointed out. Kidman hits the ropes, but Morris follows him to the ropes and clotheslines him out of the ring. I do love that spot when a guy follows the run of somebody into the ropes and clotheslines him over. I love that bit. Kidman rolls away from the middle rope elbow, hits a sliced bread, but gets cleared out with a clothesline then. Of course, he does the Kidman powerbomb reversal. Goes up top for the shooting star press, but Knobbs is out and crotches him. Bell rings. Knobbs hits a pump handle slam. Elbow drop from Kidman. But then he does the fucking Pity City, which is like fucking hell. You want to talk about like outdated shtick? No laughing matter, but then Hack comes out in the kendo stick and he clears house, but moments too late because Kidman's already dead.
Yeah,
I thought this was a perfectly acceptable match until the end.
I mean, look, it's Morris and Kidman, and as much as we fucking hate Hugh Morris, and he hasn't been good, like he's competent at the best of times in the ring.
Yeah, he's a good base here for Kidman, I think.
Kidman is very much on the run of his career to this point. So, yeah, look, it's fine. I think there's way too much fucking Brian Knobbs on this show.
If Brian Knobbs is on a show at all, it's too much Brian Knobbs in 1999.
Yeah, like you talked about there, Pity's like fucking doing that shit like in 1999. Like, come on.
I know we mentioned it during that very brief Nasty Boys run at the start of Thunder. But like, you're somebody who definitely has a lot more opportunity to have nostalgia for the Nasty Boys. Like, I never had that, so I was always over them as a thing. I think it's so fucking dated, but I'm sure even though you had a bit of nostalgia for Sags and Knobs last time, this time it's just
done with. Like,
he feels like a complete fucking relic in a way that like a lot of the other guys from that period that have come in like tweaked something to like seem, if not like fully modern, at least not as like plucked out of a different era of wrestling. Like, I think particularly of people like Rick Rude when he showed up, Kurt Hennig as well. Like, he wasn't full
Mr.
like,
Perfect. He's Kurt Hennig.
Yes. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of guys like that you can point to that I was like, they did enough to like de-cartoonify their gimmick, but like Knobs, it just reminds you of a time that we've all thankfully moved on from in wrestling. Not that like the Hulkamania era doesn't have its place and wasn't over or anything like that, but like even fucking Hulk himself has like knew when to change stuff up and when to put stuff on the shelf, so that when he comes back in the red and yellow eventually it gets a huge nostalgia pop, whereas Knobs just never changed.
Yeah, Knobs is still coming out there in his fucking Nasty Boy t-shirt, like
still talking about being nasty all the fucking time.
It's just fucking Brian Knobs. The weird thing at the end with Hack, it's like I was sure Hack missed his cue because Kidman gets killed with the no laughing matter,
Yeah.
But then Hack just canes him anyway at the end of it as well. He literally hits Kidman with the cane. So maybe he didn't.
Yeah. Who's to say? Our next match is Bryan Adams with Vincent versus Buff Bagwell. Again, another match that I think maybe should have gone about half the time it did. Like, you're trying to establish Buff as a kind of like a hot baby face now. And one thing we will say to their credit, like, the crowd are definitely into him.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's definitely over as hell. They haven't fucked it up yet. And he starts off proper House of Fire stuff. And I thought, again, this is another match that if this lasted 90 seconds and you just squash Bryan Adams, perfect. You've done a great job here. Because, like, what is Bryan Adams worth?
Yeah, in 1999, what is NWO member Bryan Adams bringing to the table?
Especially because he's about to, and I can't remember if it's because of, like, they just bench him storyline-wise or he gets injured again. But, like, he's about to go away until Chronic.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, there is nothing. He doesn't lose anything because he's so low on the totem pole that you can just beat him like a drum and it doesn't matter. It can only harm Buff the more competitive this match is.
What did you think of Tenay mentioning that the WCW young talent are starting to get frustrated at the older talent holding on to their spots?
The only comment on that I have was starting to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this has been the case for several years. But yeah, like, it's funny that even it's hard to tell sometimes with this company because, like, it is a 50-50 shot that, like, Nash is feeding him this line on commentary while he's still the booker, and then half, like, Tenay's actually annoyed and wants to get it out there, and there's definitely no quality control in WCW that anyone would have spotted that line before it made air.
It's absolutely a storyline because Malenko mentions it in his promo with Flair. So I just find it interesting that Kevin Nash, Booker Supreme Kevin Nash, who has been a world champion since 1994, is now in 1999 saying, all us young talent are really frustrated at the older talent.
It's incredible mental gymnastics, right? To be self-aware enough to know that young talent are frustrated and to make it an angle, but not self-aware enough to realize you are
part of the problem. Yeah. It's amazing. It's just it's Kevin Nash being Kevin Nash, man. It's just him taking another shot at Hogan while he's not there.
Get your Wrestling Observer Booker of the Year Chiron ready for Nash here. Buff has new white babyface gear.
Does.
What do you think of that?
It's not bad. I mean, I can see the appeal of Buff showing up in his white gear. One thing I did notice, Buff still has the top hat, and the top hat still says NWO.
Yeah. He needs to get that resprayed in a hurry. I'm afraid.
And you know what? That's the difference between WWF and WCW. He would never have been allowed to go to the ring with that hat on if it was the WWF, because for all his faults, Vince micromanaged the shit out of stuff like that.
Yeah. And given the time as well, you still had people like Cornette backstage producing stuff, and, like, even if it got by Vince, it was not getting by Corny.
Exactly.
Again, for all his faults.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Adams is getting really frustrated, and the crowd is really getting behind.
Sorry, I just thought of it there. Did you see that? Was it last week? Was either last week or the week before? AEW officially outlasted Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
I did see, and I know this is a big source of glee to you because you'd love to poke the bear on the tweet machine.
I didn't tweet it. I didn't retweet it or anything.
You didn't? Yeah, you certainly thought about it.
Yeah, look, I'm limiting my Twitter use these days.
Yeah, for the betterment of us all. For the betterment of my phone,
I've
anyway.
riled them all up once. Twitter is half broken anyway.
Yeah. Screw up. So yeah, Adams has the heat when they went to break, but the crowd is getting really behind Buff after the break as he's sitting in a bear hug. Adams slams him down for a 2 count. What's funny is I get a sense of real buyer's remorse with Buff Lee, and I think it's WCW are now really regretting that they had a chance to make the neck injury thing a proper babyface turn when he came back, and turning him so heel quickly with Scott after his comeback. They really regret doing that, and they should regret doing that.
He was red hot coming back, and they couldn't resist it. They had to do the heel turn.
Yeah, but now they're back to overemphasizing the neck injury in a way that, not that they're fully trying to pretend that the heel turn didn't happen, but they're definitely trying to have a do-over of like, this is his defining sympathetic trait now. The neck injury. Like we had, remember last week where it only occurred to them at the last minute to mention that they were doing the neck injury thing again in the same place that the neck injury happened. And since then, I think all his matches have had the neck injury angle to them.
Worked over,
yeah. And again, like, they probably would have been really on to something now. Like, I'm not saying that he, like, because again, the quality of his work really suffered because of that neck injury. But in terms of, like, overness, like, he would not have been out of place in a main event at this stage had they kept the momentum of how over he was when he came back.
If he had been one of the guys to stand up and oppose the NWO at the peak of its powers kind of thing.
If he'd come back and blown through Scott Steiner... Like, it wouldn't have hurt Scott one iota in 99.
Scott was still going to be the guy. Like,
but if he had blown through him to establish that babyface, that, like, maybe then Scott would get his win back later as, like, the dastardly heel. Like, that can be his last big win before he's a world title contender. But, you know, they can't see the forest for the trees. Like, they... Again, no, we're getting our NWO guy over, the guy we like over, fuck everyone else.
They couldn't see past Scott Steiner to see what they had with Buff coming back as like the triumphant babyface. And yeah, you mentioned it there. His work suffered so badly because of the neck injury. I don't think that there's any question about that. But
I don't think it's like, I don't think for 1 second, and I think there is a point towards the end, and it happens to everybody, where they all start to give up on the WCW project, and they're all just phoning it in. But I don't think, looking at Scott since he's returned from the neck injury, I don't get the feeling he's trying to phone it in. I just get the feeling that his body can't do what he wants it to do.
He's not quite the athlete he was post-injury, and he's still kind of working through that. But the point I was going to make is, at this point in 1999... I don't think that matters all that much, because if he's as over as he was, it would have been fine and it would have worked. So you can kind of get to a certain level with his ring work where it was. Yeah. And they just, like you say, they very much, it does very much feel like they are trying to retcon his return.
I think, yes, it's not an era of the workhorse. So I think you can absolutely have gotten him as high as you wanted him with him having to be good anymore. But yeah, like they are. It's interesting to see the ways, and it's something I'm going to keep note of, how they're doing that with him. So we nearly had a horrifying moment where Adams nearly loses Buff when he lifts him for a backbreaker, nearly drops him and kills him. Larry, interestingly, you know, as part of this rehabbing angle, Larry says there's a whole history of doctors saying wrestlers' careers are over and they come back even stronger, citing, and I think very importantly to think about the people Buff's being compared to here, he specifically mentions Ric Flair and the plane crash. So he talks about Ric Flair broke his back, should never have wrestled again, and he's the greatest world champion in history, arguably. And like, this isn't, I don't for a second think this is a free association thing. I think this is a deliberate, Buff can still be among the greats. Please don't write him off because he had this career shortening injury. Vincent gets a cheap shot in on the outside while Adams is talking to the ref. Larry says Vincent is haunting the ringside area, which I thought was a strange turn of phrase. Adams off the top misses a knee drop. Buff ducks a couple of clotheslines, hits swinging neck breaker, lovely. Crossbody lariat. Buff starts doing his strut. I do love the Buff strut.
Somebody.
It's one of the. It's one of the better struts in history. Running forearm into the corner, that clocks Mickey J. Lee, describe this chair shot.
My God.
That Vincent gets a chair. Describe this. Now, bear in mind, everybody, as Lee goes to paint your word picture, Vincent is the worst at everything ever. Now continue.
That's saying a lot when there's somebody else called Vincent in the world today. That's probably worse.
There is no constituent element of the art of pro wrestling at which Vincent isn't in the absolute bottom tier of all time.
I question whether this man understood how a chair worked. Like, the way he holds this chair is so ass backwards. Like, I genuinely don't think he knows what way these things go.
It'd be one of those things where, like, if it was one of the weapons that has only come back into vogue in the 90s, like if he was having to swing a kendo stick, I'd be like, right, fair enough. Like, he wasn't raised on the kind of wrestling where kendo sticks were used
because
all
you know
the
those
time.
people that will, like, do a kendo stick shot the way Triple H would do a sledgehammer shot with the hand over the end.
Yeah. Or I was thinking about this recently. I mentioned it earlier on. I started listening to Jovember to Remember from the start, and he was talking about how, like, really until Sabu, people had stopped doing table spots for years, with a couple of exceptions, and then Sabu brought it back. So, like, if Vincent fucked up a table spot, I'd be like, fair enough. If he fucked up a ladder spot, I'd be like, fair enough. Like, he's out of his depth. A fucking chair, though, like, it's the most fundamental foreign object in wrestling. With the, like, maybe it's right up there with, like, the ring bell and the belt.
You know what I mean? Things that are always ringside, no matter where you are.
If you fuck up any of those three things, I'm sorry. Like, what the fuck?
He's holding the chair, is it upside down?
Yeah.
And he proceeds to...
He's holding it like he's just taken a tray out of the oven. Do you know, like, at arm's length out, so it doesn't, by God, touch him.
So he's holding it with the purpose of Adams bringing Buff towards him. Or throwing Buff into the chair. I'm not quite sure. I don't think Vincent is quite sure, to be honest.
Yeah.
And obviously Buff reverses. There's been a ref bump at this point.
Yeah, I mentioned that Mickey J's down from the corner spot.
Buff reverses. Vincent doesn't swing the chair. He doesn't quite move it's very odd. He
places the chair upon the man's back.
And it's like the strangest looking thing. Like you said, it's probably the worst chair shot in the history of the business.
Yeah.
I mean, this was no Sami Zayn, Roman Reigns.
No, oh God, the greatest angle of all time.
Like, you know how Roman Reigns took that chair shot the way he took the same chair shot from Seth Rollins when the Shield broke up.
Look, it's a tired, because by the time this comes out, it's nearly 2 weeks since the Rumble. It's a fucking tired thing about this, right? It's a good storyline, but everybody is showing their fucking arses on this in a big, big way.
You mean you didn't cry?
No. Now, like, right, I see, because I've seen the thing go back and forth, and, like, I did listen to the flagship talk about it. I thought Joe and Rich, like, I think maybe they oversold the badness of the rest of the angle. I think, like, the totality of the bloodline thing is better than they... Like, I know they're hamming it up for comedy value. It is slightly better than they let on. At the same time, people who act like this is fucking theatre are out of their fucking minds. Like, absolutely out of their minds. People say this is the greatest angle in the history of sports and stuff like this. Do you know what I've been watching a lot of the last 2 weeks, Lee? I mentioned on my other podcast, so I didn't want to take up time talking about it too much on this. I've been watching Formula One Drive to Survive.
That's great drama.
Which, this is what I was going to say. I'm like, I don't give a scuttering shit about Formula One. And within one season of that documentary, I'm like... The season starts in March. Like, if I get all these watched, like, I might tune in for qualifying in Bahrain, right? I'm really like, and that's like making angles out of stuff that really happened.
Do you know what?
You know what I mean?
Put on the tennis one.
Yeah. Oh, well, you see, I already like tennis, so that's not gonna. You're not gonna have to talk me into the building on that.
I was sitting at home. Was it last week? And I was looking at it. I was like, oh, will I put it on? I was like, no, because if I put it on, I'm gonna watch it, and then I'm gonna want to watch tennis.
And the other thing that I think Joe and Rich nailed that people don't talk about enough, and I think it's because, you know, everybody says now, like, a lot of the brainworms WWE people have given up the ghost on, like, they're not going to argue anymore that in any way it's superior wrestling to the likes of an AEW or a New Japan or anything like that. So that's the thing that people overlook when they talk about this as being Shakespeare. One thing that, like, wrestling storylines, wrestling angles, like, have to have is, like, the matches have to deliver for it to go over the top for me into all-timer territory. And the thing is, like, as great and, like, genuinely some of these segments and angles and promos have been fantastic, particularly since Sami Zayn joined that whole situation, right? The matches have almost never delivered. Like, whatever about, like, you know, there was the crazy final match with Brock and Roman. Yes, that delivered. Some of the Usos are an excellent tag team. So, like, some of their tag team matches have really hit. Sami Zayn is one of the greatest professional wrestlers of his generation. But the El Jefe himself, the Roman Reigns, a lot of his matches are really fucking boring until you go to the finishing sequence, and there is no getting round that. Like, somebody pointed out this week, this is going to be his 7th, I think, WrestleMania main event match, of which I was live in person for one of them, and the only memory I have in my head of any of them is when Seth Rollins cashed in.
Yeah, because that's the best.
That's the best one, and it had nothing to do with him. It was the best one because we all thought he was going to win, and we were spared by Seth Rollins. So, like, yeah, I just needed to have that moment there. What even reminded me of that? How did we start?
Vincent's chair shot.
Oh, the chair shot, yeah, because the chair shot angle at the Rumble,
then,
yeah. I just needed to get that off my chest, because it's like, people are fucking, Jesus, they're out of their fucking minds on this. Seriously, have a critical fucking thought in your head. Watch actual drama.
So
after
the show's over, you don't want to read my fanfic about how Sammy and Roman fall in love.
Here's the thing, right? So yesterday I went to the cinema and watched Knock at the Cabin, the new M. Night Shyamalan movie that has Dave Bautista in it. 3.5-star film. Like, I may never watch it again, but I had great fun while I was there. Infinitely more compelling dramatic performances in that show, or in that movie. Fuck off with your greatest of all time bollocks.
Nothing can be the greatest of all time, and Corey Graves and fucking Pat McAfee are screaming in your fucking ear about it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Also, fuck that company.
Yeah.
So after the chair shot, we get a fucked up finish where Buff pins Adams, but Adams proceeds to kick out.
Oh my god! Yeah, what the fuck happened here? Like, Mickey J has clearly fucked.
Mickey J calls for the bell. Buff's music starts to play. Adams proceeds to beat the shit out of Buff because he's not happy about this. So Mickey J just decides, well, you know what? The match hasn't ended, so let's just keep going.
Yeah. They absolutely should have called an audible, right, and just left it end there. Like, this, the thing that I couldn't believe watching this go, like, they obviously, because they're establishing the blockbuster, and this is, I think, the main reason why they continued, is they had to hit the blockbuster and have that be the finish, which they get to in about 30 seconds or so. The thing that absolutely blows my mind in terms of why they bothered, this was taped. They could have spliced this together and we didn't have to see the fuck finish, but they kept the fuck, like, one, because it's taped, they just didn't have to show us any of this. They didn't have to show the match. Do you know what I mean? If it got fucked up. Two, they could have just proceeded on as they did and edited out the part that was fucked. They just didn't.
Yeah, that's WCW for you.
Yeah. And, like, it easy, because it was a taped show, you could have gone backstage and just gone, right, let's get somebody else out there for a 5-minute match to fill this, or get Buff out to wrestle someone else. Anyway, Nitro. The fans were bait and switched on a Nash versus Savage match. as a fake Savage in a dress came
fake
out.
Nash.
Well, fake Nash in a dress came out. Savage beats him down. Gorgeous George does for everything that we said about her over delivering at the pay-per-view, the Savage elbow that she dropped here was very bad. But I will say style points because she did it in a ball gown.
That is
so that adds difficulty. I will give her that.
That's the old diving level of difficulty thing, isn't it?
Yeah, what's really funny, in a classic, like, we're just going to set and then immediately ignore stipulations, Flair had banned the elbow drop. And, like, he had banned it that night, and then Gorgeous George does it, and then Savage does it.
So the setup was, as Gorgeous George is going for the elbow, the comment Shivani is like, oh, well, Ric Flair has banned the macho elbow. So Savage is distracting the ref while she hits it.
Yeah, although it would have been a cool little angle if they'd done the thing where George does it and then George gets suspended and you have going into the Nash Savage match that he's getting, like, the women who are his biggest advantage are being taken away. I thought that would have been a cool little angle. Doesn't seem to be what they're doing here. She just did it and then he fucking did it anyway. Yeah. Just couldn't help himself.
He was going to go, I think he was going to do either the jackknife or a pile driver, and then he just went, fuck it, I'm going to slam him and do the elbow.
I'd be interested to know if that was the plan, that he was just supposed to do it already with it being banned, or he just did it. Not fully went into business for himself, or he just got hyped up because he's Randy Savage and he's in front of a live crowd and he's like, I do the elbow. So
I think that's what it was. I think he just went, well, no, it's my move, so I'm doing it. Fuck this storyline.
Yeah. An interesting flashback. Crowd did. This is the other thing. That Nitro, I was almost perversely interested in going back to look at because it sounded like that crowd was fucking dead on that show. Now, there was some weird sound mixing issues because there are bits on the show where they cut back to, like, promos and stuff on Nitro and you can barely hear them. So I wonder, maybe the crowd was a little hotter. But anyway, next match, I was briefly excited and then got brought right back down to fucking earth. Scott Norton versus the returning Silver King. We love a Silver King appearance on this show.
Big fans of Silver King.
God bless him. Unfortunately, do you know who isn't a big fan of Silver King? Scott Norton.
Scott Norton just beats up this man.
This is like prime. Like, Rick Steiner is definitely going through this thing where he's just roughing people up. Interesting, by the way, that, like, we didn't see anything about the cage match on this show. I was expecting replays at Go-Go. I have no idea what happened. Like, again, I'm not going to look at the Nitro because maybe next week on Thunder, like, Steiner's on it.
Do you not remember what happens? No. Okay, so basically they get into this cage, if you want to call it that, and Tank Abbott just proceeds to beat the piss out of Sting.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, whatever. I'm somebody that, like, I have rose tinted glasses, but I do love that when he starts doing the called out Goldberg where he just comes out and beats up people all the time, particularly when he beats the fucking dog shit out of Mark Madden on Nitro. I think that might be a Nights of Nitro by itself. Pulling the shirt up over him and just putting haymakers into his gut. Like,
can you remember, like, that weird MMA style dome cage WCW had?
Oh, was this part of the... Because we've talked about doing this. Was this part of cross promotion? Because it's this year the Battle Dome comes out.
And I can't remember. I'm trying to jog my memory, and I can't remember if it was this time or another time that they had that cage.
I can't remember if we did a shout on the show, by the way. If anybody can get me Battle Dome, like, links to watch all of Battle Dome, we want to do a mini series on Battle Dome.
Dave wants to do a mini series on Battle Dome.
Because I remember, do you remember that was on TV3 over here in prime time?
No.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was one of the early, because TV3, our third station, launched around this time.
Think about that.
And... yeah, and it was like Battle Dome was prime time shit, and they did some crossover on WCW. They must have both been Turner properties. But yeah, they did 2 seasons of the show. I really want to watch it back because, like, I imagine it's fun bad. because it's like American Gladiators, but with like pro wrestling, like worked storylines in it. But yeah, I'd really like to watch it. I know you can get season 1 on a Region 1 DVD on eBay. I have. This is how far I have actually looked into it. And there is one, I think you can get it on Prime Video on demand in America. But I haven't seen season 2 anywhere, and I haven't seen good links to, quote unquote, purchase it. So if anybody can get me Battle Dome, hit me up in the DMs at WCW Thunderpod,
I'm gonna
please.
search it up and see if I have accessibility to it.
Yes, please do. Anyway, yeah, Norton immediately. Oh, this was like a classic, like from the Meng playbook. Scott Norton's no selling in this match was hysterically funny. Like it wasn't like it. I'd feel bad normally, but it was such a level of no selling that I just laughed. Like Silver King nails him with a drop kick, and he's just like, nah.
Yeah, he just doesn't budge.
And he's just wearing jeans and a vest, and he's just like, fuck it. He's got a real thick dad chain on. He's just like walking around the ring as well. Like he never moves faster than a walk. Silver King is doing the Lord's work, like bumping around like crazy, just pinballing off him. I was just like, Jesus, mate, like don't work too hard, like because Lord knows your dance partner here isn't going to work for you. Silver King, this is the best no sell I've maybe seen ever in this run since the no bumps match on Nitro. That's me and Aaron Quinn's favorite match of all time. Silver King ducks a corner charge, goes up top, and hits a moonsault on Norton, which he no sells. I have never seen anyone no sell a standing
it's
moonsault.
Not that he
before.
no sells it. Norton makes this movement so it looks like he's putting his shoulder into Silver King.
Yeah. I thought he was going to do the Samoa Joe sidestep, but no, he was just, like he said, he was just too hench to be moonsaulted upon, sir. Then he's just like, fuck, he hits what I'm going to start calling the fuck you powerbomb, which is like, I am going to give you legitimate whiplash. That is how hard I'm going to put you into this mat, and wins. And he said quite accurately down the barrel of the camera then, nobody wants a piece of this. And sir, I absolutely concur with you. No one wants.
We should say
this.
Scott Norton is currently in a feud with the Cat.
Yes, I love Silver King. You love Silver King. We all love Silver King. If you take that element out of it,
it's great
squash.
It really was.
It's like he beat the dog fuck out of him. Pinned him. Like he squashed him in a worked sense, but also in a shoot sense.
Yeah, nobody can take Silver King seriously after this, unfortunately.
So good. We go back to Nitro, and we are fully in the rap is crap storyline. They have a stare down with Conan and Ray, our new No Limit soldiers. Which also, this was, I think, is it this Nitro or the next Nitro where we have the official arrival of the No Limit soldiers? Yeah.
This was also our first introduction to DJ. What's his name on Nitro?
DJ, what's his name?
Fuck, what's his name? I can't think of it. It's gone out of my fucking head. The DJ that becomes a mainstay on Nitro for a year or so, isn't it?
Yeah. WCW Nitro DJ, because the name is on the tip of my tongue as well, and that's gonna bother me. Is it DJ Ram?
That's
yeah.
So
he's there. Like yeah, it looks like he's actually there till the last Nitro.
Wow.
Okay. Because there's a Reddit article here about his. Because they have an interview with him about the final Nitro. Link to YouTube here.
Let's see.
I actually might watch that. Just to hear him talk about like his involvement with WCW and the final Nitro. That'd be interesting. Because we've all heard the same, like Shane Helms and stuff like that, talking about Shane walking into the dressing room and stuff like that. But I'd like to actually get a fresh perspective on what must have been an exceptionally weird night.
So yeah, it's basically Hennig and Bobby Duncombe Jr., who are now aligned, are basically bullying DJ Ram and
not formally known as the
not
West
quite,
Texas Rednecks yet.
And Conan and Mysterio come to his aid, and this is the big kickoff to the West Texas Rednecks versus what would become the Filthy Animals feud.
This leads into a match between Rey Mysterio and Curt Hennig, and before I remember that they officially get a tag team name, I started trying to workshop them, and I got halfway through writing Perfect Cum, and I said, you know what, never mind.
Well, I mean, you have Val Venus on the other channel, so...
Yeah, I know. Has he got his jizz shirt yet at this point in 99? I'm not sure. Yeah, locked, cocked, etc. Ray makes a running start here, but Curt was ready for him. Ray picks up the pace and Hennig can't cope. I do love that. I think that's a good role for Curt Hennig to have, as like you put him in there with a cruiser and he's just like the salty vet that can't keep up with the fucking flippy doos. Curt gets the heat going through the break, but then Ray begins a comeback that's focused on Hennig's bad wheel. Hennig cuts him off. Ray makes another comeback. Oh yeah, he looks like he's going for a Bronco Buster, but Duncombe comes out of nowhere and wishbones him off the ring post. Hennig calls Duncombe in and they beat him down as Hennig puts Bobby's hat on, which is like, okay, it's not quite Kurt Angle in the tiny cowboy hat, but Curt Hennig in a cowboy hat, always
strange
funny.
visual, isn't it, when you haven't seen it for a while?
It is. It's very strange. It's not natural to me at all. Several seconds too late. This again, another possible missed cue. It feels like several seconds too late into this beating. Conan and Kidman are out.
Isn't it interesting that Kidman came out and yet Conan and Ray couldn't have been arsed to come out and help Kidman earlier in the night?
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? But that, I suppose that's a bit of continuity, because wasn't that kind of happening with like when Kidman and Ray were sort of friends, sort of not? Like there was a couple of occasions where Kidman was coincidentally not able to save Ray from beatdowns from the heels.
Kidman's just too busy backstage with all his...
Yeah, look, I don't for a second think this is deliberate, but it just like there is enough there that you could try and rationalize it if you were smart.
I need a kayfabe reason for why Kidman is too busy to help Rey Mysterio.
Lee, I want you to paint me a word picture of our next flashback to Nitro. This is the Lou's Septic Services angle.
Well, I mean, it's literally shit. This is the picture.
Yes, literally, and funny enough, metaphorically shit as well. So while I go and refill my drink here, I would like you to paint me a word picture.
So this flashback, you get Savage and the ladies are leaving the arena, getting into their limo, and they all load in as you do, and about to leave and talking about how successful their night has been when they are blocked in by two septic waste trucks. And it would turn out that one, Kevin Nash, gets out of the passenger seat of one of the trucks. And, so, as happens in these angles, the doors magically no longer work and the heels cannot make their escape. So Kevin Nash proceeds to get the hose. He climbs on top of the limo. Very easily, I should say, removes the sunroof. It's almost like it wasn't actually in place. And he proceeds to take the hose and fill the inside of the limo with what I presume to be septic waste, or waste from a...
From Lou. It's Lou's.
Well, it's Lou's personal waste, yeah. So... Yeah, I was just saying, Dave, while you were gone, that it's amazing in all these angles when the cars get blocked in, the doors no longer work. It's one of these safety features.
Nor the sunroof, which was then utilised as part of this.
Yeah,
angle.
I was going to say the sunroof came off very easily for one Kevin Nash. It's almost like it wasn't there at all. So Nash proceeds to spray them with shy, literally.
What I also love about while he's spraying them with shite is that Savage very quickly leaps out of the way of it to the opposite end of the limo, but none of the women think to do that. So they get like full force all of Lou's septic sprayed
But
upon
Savage
them.
is doing the classic oversell of it while still avoiding a lot of it.
Yeah, when they come out of the car, all covered in it, Savage is remarkably clean compared
The
to
women
the
are
other,
fucking
the other
round,
guys.
yeah.
Yeah, they really, to be fair,
They committed to the bit,
hats
yeah.
off to them. They really did. Savage, again, just kind of did his own fucking thing here.
So Savage, Nash gets out. I forgot to mention this. He gets out of the passenger seat, and he has on a mask, like a breathing mask, breathing apparatus, and I will say, takes away a ton of cool points. Like when you have Austin coming out driving Zambonis and fucking beer trucks and all that, and then you see Kevin Nash having to wear safety equipment.
Yeah. I think this whole thing, like in terms of taking away cool points, I think I'd feel a bit differently about this were it not for those Austin angles. Like, it is to me like transparently copying.
Yeah,
all
because
that shit.
the year before Austin had done the cement truck.
Yeah.
And
yes, that's the closest. We were talking about his famous angles, but that's the closest 1-to-1 in terms of like he fucked up a vehicle.
Nash then runs away, gets back into the passenger seat, says go, 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 because he's afraid of...
Lou runs septic services, but he's also an accomplished getaway driver.
So Macho gets out of the car, and I believe he screams "son of a bitch" at least 3 times, which is a big no-no on Turner Network Television, Dave.
Yeah. Yes. But once again, it's Savage. He's gonna do his thing.
I did like that he added in that he was gagging while the women are just like screaming in the background.
Yeah. I didn't like it at all. I felt like it was, like I said, an imitation, a low rent imitation of stuff that got over. And as a in terms of Thunder, this is the second last Thunder before the pay-per-view. I was like, this is maybe a silly middle of the month angle you do. I don't feel this is like just before the go home show sort of stuff.
You don't feel that the lipstick on Kevin Nash's face and the septic tank water are big pushes for a WCW World Title match?
No, and it's funny because I think that in isolation, the idea of that like Savage becomes unhinged and starts ruining shows by attacking people is a good angle to take, but the execution has been uniformly bad.
That's fair.
I think, like you said, I think the lipstick thing is just like, because again, it's a pale variation on the NWO spraying people, but they're not doing it in a way that, even if they did exactly that, but they really emphasized how he is tagging him like the NWO used to tag people. That it's paying into their history with each other and with the NWO. Or something like that. I don't get the point of the lipstick thing. Like, why lipstick, apart from the fact that he's got 3
women with him now,
female valets. Yeah, that's the only link, really.
Speaking of tagging, what do you think of 2023's new tagging craze in AEW? Have you seen this?
No.
Tony Storm and Saraya are now...
Oh, yeah, and they're painting people green. Like, is that going to be a thing where
that's their
like
thing.
It's people envy?
Yeah. Well, no, I thought it was that they're green,
envy?
as in they're green.
Oh yeah, maybe, yeah. I'd prefer like that whole, establishment thing, versus the AEW originals. I'm not usually gone on it. I think it would be more interesting if, like, Saraya went back to her kind of, like, anti-diva thing that she was doing in NXT, where she was just like, I come from a lineage of professional wrestlers. These guys, like, there is plenty of opportunity. Like, these women's wrestlers now, they aren't divas by any stretch of the imagination, but you could do a variation on it. Or, like, loads of them do all these media appearances and stuff like this, and they're trying to be crossover stars. Like, you have the picture of, like, all the AEW women with the Jags quarterback and stuff like that. So you could have like they're trying to make this about more than wrestling, whereas
I don't think
Saraya
can do that, considering she's been on like 7 seasons of Total Divas.
But because she's a heel, you sort of can, because it can make her a massive hypocrite. Like there is, put it this way, there are multiple ways you can slice this that would be better than the way they're doing it at the moment. I don't really. Now, I do think it was smart to turn her because the crowd were just not having it. And I do think I am interested long term in heel Toni Storm, which is not something we've seen too much of.
No, I think there was a period where she was heel in Progress for a little bit, but then like everyone was so into her that they just turned her back anyway.
I think she was so over on the indies, like you couldn't really.
I'm like you. I'm not overly enjoying it, but I don't hate it either. I'm very much in the middle ground of I'm gonna give this time to play out and see where it goes.
I think division at the moment is suffering from the fact that one of the divisions, the women's divisions, they are trying like hell to keep anybody with a name away from Jade. Because they want her to rack up those wins, but they don't want her beating any of the top women.
Yeah, it's almost like they're in a holding pattern waiting for somebody to come in, isn't it?
Yes, and I think if it's not that person, I think they just need to do it and do it soon. Because I think, like, I love Jade, like, as an aura, as a presence, but I think she has to drop it. She has to drop it and turn.
I think the payoff is going to be a mystery opponent at Double or Nothing that everyone knows is not a mystery.
Revolution,
I think it stretches.
Oh, do you think? Oh, Jesus. Oh, man, it'll be so... Oh, God, I want it to be sooner. I really like it, because I'm just thinking about if it is that mystery person, they can probably announce it, was it a week and a half away from that Battle in the Valley?
Battle in the Valley is the middle of February, yeah,
So if there is, people have suspected maybe there's an agreement that person will appear first on their show, because there's just enough time to get that person in for the pay-per-view.
No, I think if they're bringing her in, they have to do the CM Punk thing of, it's a big mystery, but wink wink, it's...
Now, if you want to do the thing where you have her debut and confront Jade, they don't have the match now, but they're kind of building it.
Kurt Angle Samoa Joe thing.
I think once we know that's the definitive path, I think people will be okay with it for a while longer. Like you can do an angle where Jade is ducking her. But I think like if that's not what the plan is, they need to get it off her soon. Because I think it has run its course. People just want to cheer Jade now. There's no one they can put her against that they won't cheer.
I think
none of the girls they're putting her against are getting
I think
reactions.
There might be money in her as a face.
Yeah, no, I genuinely, and as like a crossover star. And I also think she needs reps. I think she's one of these people that now they're doing house shows. I think she needs to be on every single fucking one of them. And I also think once you have that title offer, you can start putting her in more matches, because like she has to be in matches where she's either tagging with people or she's defending the belts now. But anyway, that's kind of getting dramatically off the point. It's main event time. Chris Benoit versus Ric Flair with Asia. You were a big fan of this match.
Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah.
I
thought it was one of those matches where you see the immense respect one man has for the other, because Ric Flair going into a pay-per-view where he has, like, as much as we're not into it, a big story, he is a big star in this business, gave Benoit 90% of this match.
This is the classic Ric Flair thing of, I just want to go in there and work with people, and like the famous stories are he'd wrestle guys like George South on TV and just give them so much more than anybody else would, because Ric Flair just loves wrestling people that he respects. And look, we'll say this every time we talk about him and blah blah blah. People in the business respected Chris Benoit. The man gets a mega push for the rest of 1999 in WCW because mostly people respected him. And the fans,
and because everybody knew, like, I could put myself in an angle with this guy, and we're both going to get over.
It's amazing that the fans are right there as well at this point. They're like, yeah, this guy is good.
Yeah.
And
he's a guy, like, it's so interesting, like, multiple companies, multiple years, where before they did, you could have done something on a main event level with him. And obviously they eventually do, like, right when he's already resolved to leave.
Yeah. It's classic fucking WCW in that they just leave it too long. But no, like, this, like, you could give me this on every Thunder. If you tell me there's going to be a 12-minute main event involving two guys that are just going to go out there and wrestle and fucking... Yeah, there might be a bullshit finish, but I will take that kind of, like, good 10-minute match.
Yeah. And that's the thing, I will get to describing some of the highlights of the matches here now over the next couple of minutes, but, like, at the end of the day, it's exactly the match you think. It's like these two guys coming in, largely calling it on the fly, and just having a really just solid wrestling match. Like, it's not... I was
just going to say, I think they very much wrestle within themselves as well.
Yes, it's not the level that they can go to where we're telling you guys gotta watch this show because, like, this is one of the... Like, it probably is by default in the upper echelon of Thunder matches, but it's also only really about, like, what would you say, like a 3.5 star kind of... like,
yeah,
it's
probably
not...
wouldn't even go 3.5, probably go like 3.25, but it's just solid, good professional wrestling with two good, solid professional wrestlers that just kind of go back and forward, and it has a good story behind it.
Yeah, for sure. To get into the actual meat of the match now, it's very, like, it plays into the storyline of the Horsemen deserting Flair, where you have a very aggressive Benoit, vicious in fact, coming after Flair. Flair, like, really early on is just like, oh, I'm fucking not having this, and tries to go up the ramp and go home. Benoit chases him. It is, like I said, all Benoit early. He manages to get a figure 4 in. Back to the corner. An ungodly amount of chops in this match, which wasn't really, like, I feel like the doing loads of chops bit has been killed to death by the indies. There's very few people anymore who can do a load of chops in a match. Like, I think Walter is the only one who, when they do a load of chops, people are like, oh,
I think when Flair went to the WWE, like, post WCW, I think that's when doing the fuck ton of chops with Flair really got overdone. Because really there wasn't much Ric Flair could do at that point anyway. So he kind of his matches became heavily reliant on the chopping battles.
So many chops. He begs off again. Flair tries to argue with the ref, and the ref shoves him over. Which very much reminded me of, like, the dynamic we'd have the following year with Triple H and Earl Hebner. Do you remember during the infamous Dusty finish with Jericho?
It's a bit that Flair would do in the 80s with Tommy Young.
Yeah. And you see him repeating it now. Triple H, obviously a huge Flair fan, would repeat it later. And then even actually into AEW, Jericho was doing the bit with Aubrey for like the first year or so. It's a time honored bit, I guess. So corner chops again. Benoit gets briefly distracted where the ref is trying to get him to break the corner chops, and Flair gets the thumb in the eye. I'm not going to repeat any of it, but this is kind of what Lee was talking about Larry being really bad on this show. He is very, very awful for a sustained period, specifically about Asia. And I don't want to get into that. Like, he says some really fucking horrendous things on this show that just aren't worth thinking about or repeating again. It's very much one of those things that we're going to get it more and more with Asia. I know we are. It's just like, very much, this is unfortunately the way people were at the time, and it's awful. And I can't imagine it being a funny bit at the time either. Like, it was a more socially acceptable, unfortunately, well to plumb for bad gags. But
and if you think it's bad with Asia, and trust me, it's fucking bad, wait until midnight comes in. Yeah. Flair has given Benoit most of this. He's willing to look like a complete coward as well.
as we mentioned. Outside, and Flair is backing up. You get some more chops against the rail. Flair manages to stop that assault for a second when they return into the ring, but it's really only a second. This cycle of chops and begging off continues. Another standing chop exchange between the two. Flair sees an opportunity, grabs the figure four. Benoit manages to survive. Flair tries to attack his leg again. Benoit hits an enziguri. Benoit misses a drop kick. Flair gets a headlock in. Benoit gets out of it with a head scissors. They do the waistlock posting up from a pin bit, which was, I think, genuinely impressive. The Flair was still able to do that. Like, it wasn't the smoothest one you'd ever seen in your life, but it was one of those.
Struggle there.
The latter Flair definitely had this thing in him where he was just like, I'm going to prove I can still do it. Like, there's a famous story about him and Taker's Mania match where he didn't think he could do the corner flip spot, and the first time they did it, he didn't do it, and Undertaker was like,
let's
you're
go.
fucking doing it.
That isn't that the famous quote?
And
All
he
right,
did
kid,
it again.
let's go.
Yeah. So lariat from Benoit, he does the throat slash, short arm clothesline, does the headbutt, and then DDP is out. Pulls the ref out, kills the ref. Bam Bam's here now. Benoit fights valiantly, but the numbers add up as we go out off the air with the greetings cutter, which still looks terrible.
I've been trying to think up a name for that.
Yeah,
and I can't come up with one that's appropriate.
What about the greetings from Bangtown? Remember the Bangtown thing he was going on for a month?
I was thinking diamonds from Asbury Park.
Yeah. Tell us what you prefer. Greetings from Bangtown or Diamonds from Asbury Park at WCW.
Greetings from Bangtown is definitely a Ben Affleck, Jennifer Lopez movie.
And definitely also a porn.
Oh, yeah.
At least a series of them. A series for sure. What's the name? Vivid Video presents.
There's a name I haven't thought about in fucking years.
Because I watched the
Vivid Videos.
No, yeah. No, I watched the Netflix documentary about Pamela Anderson. And I think Vivid get a mention there because I think they're one of the companies that tried to distribute the Pam and Tommy tape. But anyway,
I actually haven't watched it. Yeah, I must watch it.
It's a very good documentary. Very sad, but very good. That's the end of Thunder this week. What did you think of the show overall? Like, we kind of gave early impressions that didn't hate it, didn't love it. I thought, anyway, a perfectly serviceable, watchable 2 hours of TV that moved stuff along and didn't feel, with the exception of Bam Bam not having the belt, didn't feel too much like this was clearly taped before things changed.
Like I said at the top of the show, like every match progresses on current storylines, and that's not always a thing on these second parts of the tapings. Like a very fun squash. A very good a good to very good main event, depending on your opinion. Some, like, even the flashbacks were pretty relevant to what was being told on the show.
Yeah. Because again, like, if you want to play devil's advocate with me saying I'm surprised we didn't see anything in the cage match, maybe in some ways it makes sense because we didn't actually get any Rick Steiner on this show.
They actually said at one point that the Steiners, Tank Abbott and Sting were all barred from the building. So maybe it was like they kind of looked into it in one sense that they didn't book a Rick Steiner singles match or a Scott Steiner singles match. But that kind of played into what happened on Nitro. So yeah, look, I think it was all in all a pretty enjoyable show. And yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Like I say, I'll always take a main event like this to close out a show, which will always kind of give me a better feeling about the overall show.
Yeah. So anything works. Like, if you stick the landing, people remember it a lot better than, if you don't. The finish counter. Oh, actually, sorry. Give me your winners and losers.
Winners and losers. I think Chris Benoit, comes out with some major credit for a pretty good performance in the main event with Flair. I think Scott Norton looked like a fucking beast, which is not something we've always said on this show.
Yeah.
And yeah, other than that, there was like, I don't really know, like Hugh Morris, fucking being associated with Brian Knobbs is not doing that man any favors at all.
Yeah. And like maybe you could say because he was the victim of the squash, you could argue that Silver King unfortunately has to be put in the loser category again. Yeah. We love you, Silver King, so much. But yeah, so the finish counter brought to you by Ludwig Borga has 6 matches on this show and a rare 50-50 split. 3 clean finishes and 3 DQs or countouts. So statistical anomaly there. Thank you very much for listening to another episode of Days of Thunder. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks here at the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. Be safe, be well. We'll talk to you then. Bye-bye. Thanks everyone for listening to another episode of Days of Thunder. Days of Thunder was produced by Lee Malone and edited by me, Dave Ryan. To keep up to date with the show and find all the ways to listen to us, you can follow us on Twitter at WCW Thunderpod or click the Linktree link in our Twitter bio or in the show notes. I am at The Day to Dave on Twitter and Lee is at Malone_713. Days of Thunder is a part of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. Follow the VOW network anywhere good podcasts are sold for more fine podcasts than you can shake a stick at. Thanks.
I can hear the thunder that's breaking. Now there is nothing between us. From now